Everyone, and welcome to another manga pickups video. This is for the first half of October. As I'm going to preface this pickup video by saying in the next couple months I'm not going to be spending nearly as much as I have been on manga and anime as well. I've had a lot of car issues in the last week or so, so a lot of my extra money will be going to that. In saying that, of course, I do have pre-orders and certain things that I've already paid for that will still be coming to me in the next couple months, and there are certain titles that I will be prioritizing, spending on, but it's not going to be nearly like a huge sort of 40 plus volume month that I've had in previous months. I just don't have the extra money, and I mean, I think I've always been quite upfront with this for my collecting, but I don't tend to buy things sight unseen. I prefer to only purchase things that I know I will enjoy, and they're already experienced the story. I've already read it. I've already watched it. So I have been trying to, especially over the last year and a half, to keep my collection in line with stuff that I know I will enjoy multiple times. I think for a lot of people, when they do these sorts of videos, or when they get into anime, manga, collecting, buying, enjoyment, whatever else, there's a big push to buy a lot of series. And sort of support everything you can, which the sentiment there is good, but obviously no one really has the... I would expect that a lot of fans don't really have the ability to pay for everything, like buy everything that is ever released or they've ever enjoyed. I'm sure there's some, but in my opinion, I definitely prefer to focus on series that are ones I definitely enjoy, definitely go back to, and has more than just a one-time watch or read value to me. So yeah, I think with this hobby, it's very easy to fall into this slippery slope of buying every new release, everything that is sort of tangentially related to certain genres or topics that you enjoy, whether that be, zombie manga or romantic comedies or whatever else. And I think there's a big push for some fans to have a large collection. And as someone with a large collection, I definitely urge people to not shoot to have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of anime and manga. It's fantastic if you can do that and it makes you happy and you enjoy everything to its fullest. But I've said this before, my collection is 7 years old at this point, probably longer. It was never, this large, and I never expected it to get this large when I started. And, I was just like a lot of you first-time buyers. I had a couple titles, I had one shelf, and I really didn't think it would get any larger than that. And I mean like one bookshelf, not like a huge full bookshelf of everything. I had one little floating shelf worth of anime DVD titles, and that was it. But obviously, with my interests grew and my spending grew, and it obviously morphed into what it is now. But it took a long time to reach this point. So yes, that doesn't have much in relation to how I'm going to be spending in the next month, but I do want to tell people who watch my videos that it's not a race to collect things, and don't buy things just because other people are saying you should buy things. I know I do say, like, I hope that people support this, and I do recommend people watch this, but I also urge people to try things out at the library, or borrow it from a friend, or purchase, like, the ebook version of it if you're not willing to, or not wanting to buy, like, hard copies. Just try something before you buy it and invest a huge amount of money in it. Is sort of my main point for this, because I know that a lot of people can start to buy every single title that's coming out and then get burnt out on spending, basically, and it's always sad to see that, because you don't want people to kind of become bitter towards the industry. It's much better to focus on the titles that you know you'll enjoy. It's also why sometimes I get questioned a lot why I don't have, like, big shonen releases, One Piece, Naruto, Rurouni Kenshin, Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z. And I always try and answer them truthfully within that although they're very popular and very sort of influential within manga and anime and this hobby in general, they're not really series that interest me too much, and I may enjoy them if I sat down and read or watched them, but it's not something I'm willing to really invest the time into, so it doesn't really, I have no real interest in investing a lot of money or time into something that I don't know that I'm going to enjoy, especially for longer shonen stuff, because it's literally hundreds of episodes, and I don't have time for that. I barely have time for the 12 episode series that I enjoy. So yes, just kind of, I'm going to stop preaching to you guys. I know you're waiting for the manga. I also want to say there's quite a bit of BL at the end of this video, so if you're not interested in that, you don't have to watch it till the end, as I would assume most people would, stop watching at that point anyway. But I do have some non-BL titles, so before I spend 10 minutes not even talking about what I got, I'll just get right into it. So first of all is the second volume of Yuna of the Dawn. This is a series that is sort of a fantasy setting. It's the sort of setting that was very popular about 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago at this point, that kind of died off for a little while. I'm glad to see Yuna making such an impact and such a resurgence of the genre within the US and English-speaking markets, because it is very well done, and it's the sort of story, like 12 Kingdoms, that is always very engaging. It has a great cast of characters, fantastic female lead, and just really enjoyable to read or watch. I said this with the first volume. I haven't actually been reading these yet. I do know that I'll enjoy them, which is why I've bought these first couple volumes, but I want to wait until I have a few before I start reading them. I did watch the first couple of episodes for this anime, so I do know what I'm getting into. It's not a blind buy. I do know the story, but as for the manga itself, I'm just going to hold off until I have a couple volumes, and then I can enjoy it all at once. Next is volume 4 of Haikyuu. I haven't actually received my volume 3 of Haikyuu yet. The store that I shipped that from is much slower with shipping than the store I bought this one from, so it just worked out that volume 4 arrived to me before volume 3. As you can probably tell from this volume, we have Nekoma, not necessarily introduced, but they are playing Nekoma, the larger team, which is the the main character, Karasune's rival. Haikyuu is a fantastic series. The new season of the anime just started. Oop, hit the camera. And it's all fantastically done. I highly recommend this series to most everyone. All of the characters, whether they be rival schools or within the Karasuno volleyball team, are very likable. There's a lot of different personalities, but they're all characters you can really root for. And the good thing that I always enjoy with sports anime, at least good sports anime, is that the rivals are never like totally antagonistic. There's no evil characters. They're just all high schoolers who enjoy a certain sport. They're not evil because they're not on your team. They're just other, sports nerds who enjoy this sport. Nekoma is a great team. I really enjoy it. The personalities of the characters, Kenma, Kuro, and the rest are just a fun bunch of weirdos, like our main characters. And the Haikyuu manga really is one that I can recommend to everyone. It's very fun. I always read it with a smile on my face because I know that I'm going to enjoy it pretty much no matter what happens. Haikyuu, fantastic release. I'm really glad that it's getting a monthly release. We won't catch up for like at least 2 years at this point, but I'm glad that we're getting so much Haikyuu and can enjoy it pretty quickly and not have to worry too much about losing the momentum of the series, because it's incredibly popular in Japan, it's incredibly popular outside of Japan, and there's good reason for it. Next is the most recent volume of Maggie, volume 20. So this is going to be the last volume of Maggie I'm going to be buying for a while. Maggie has never been a top priority for me. I have been buying the most recent volumes, like 18, 19, and this one, as they come out, but before that there was a long stretch of time where I didn't buy any of it. Maggie's a good story. I definitely enjoy certain aspects of it, but it's not a favorite of mine. I think that there's definitely certain elements to it that I enjoy, but there's also small things that sort of detract from my overall enjoyment of it. In saying that, it is very good. It's very well thought out. The magic system's good, and the political system is very good. There's a lot of very interesting conversations within Maggie as a manga, but I think that it does get a little lost in its setting sometimes, and sort of the convolutedness of some of the characters. But overall, it's a good series. I just won't be picking it up for a while. But I'm not going to abandon it. I will finish it up in the future. It seems like a good place to stop for now, and I'll continue buying volumes when I kind of feel like it. Next is the only secondhand manga I got from this part of the month, and this is one I bought probably 2 months ago at this point, and it seems that copy got lost in the mail, so where I bought it, which was Thrift Books, I messaged them and they very kindly sent me a replacement with expedited shipping. So this one is another Viz graphic novel. So similarly to AA Prime and For Shoujo Stories, this is a much older Viz release from before manga was released in its right to left format rather than left to right format. And this book, it was released in 1997. It is actually a Matt Thorne translation, which I didn't realize until I just looked at the information there. But it is Love Song 4 tales by shoujo artist Keiko Nishi. So this book has 5 chapters. There's 4 stories in all. Love Song, Jewels on the Seaside, The Signal Goes Blink Blink, and The Skin of Her Heart. So this is very much shoujo of its time, which was early 90s, insofar as that it's not to say that all shoujo now is sort of high school romance, but a lot of these have nothing to do with romance. Love Song, or it has to do with romance, but not to the extent that it's not focused on like a girl making a boy fall in love with her, or falling in love with a boy and them growing closer and yada yada. The first story in this one, Love Song, is probably I wouldn't say weakest, but it's probably the most uncomfortable to read. It's about a young woman who doesn't really know how to show affection and doesn't really understand what love is, and she really ends up abusing her boyfriend, who is just this really kind-hearted guy who cares about her and doesn't want to abandon her or worry her, but she really is very violent towards him, very verbally abusive to him, and she doesn't want to admit, or she doesn't think that she can ever love, because if what she's doing now is love, then how can people be so happy about being in love? Like, it's not a good feeling for her. So it's very interesting. Like, it's a very interesting discussion point. But reading it as like an outsider view, you do feel really bad, especially for her boyfriend. But it is very interesting little one chapter story. Jewels on the Seaside. Jewels of the Seaside is more so, it does sort of, it's about 3 sisters who all have fallen in love with their male cousin and are trying to get his attention, but they grow jealous of each other because they feel like he's more interested in one of them because of their own perceived flaws. One thinks she's doesn't have a chance because she's older. The middle one thinks she doesn't have a chance because she has dark hair and glasses. And the youngest one doesn't think she has a chance because she's the youngest. She's like the baby and probably the least mature of the 3. And it's almost set up like a horror story. It honestly is kind of a horror story where they grow jealous of each other and all 3 end up plotting to poison each other. It's very interesting. Very interesting. The 3rd story, which is the longest story in this book, is called The Light Goes Blink Blink. The Signal Goes Blink Blink. And it's about a young middle school or high school boy who is constantly bullied. His family doesn't really care about him. He doesn't really have any friends. He's sort of the quiet, nerdy, wilting violet sort of character. But one day he helps. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember exactly. I think he heals. He finds a puppy that in a box that's hurt its leg, and this like he's not a traveling salesman. I think he sells holidays. Travel agent. That's the word I'm looking for. Has seen this kid around, and he's seen how bad he gets bullied and everything. And he's sort of a scam artist. He's trying to like make money and get rich quick, but he sees this kid and he tells him like, oh, you're getting bullied and blah blah blah. And so he sees this kid, and the kid finds the dog, and he doesn't know what to do because the dog's hurt his leg, but then he doesn't think he can take it home because his family won't allow it. And he ends up healing this dog. So they find out that this kid has healing powers, and he can heal the sick, the infirm, everything. and just so he becomes famous for being like this magic mystic healer, and then gets a huge popularity, huge following. Everyone wants to be healed and cured and everything else. And this travel agent has become his manager because obviously he sees money and wants to follow it. And then because of his popularity, another con artist who has tricked people into thinking he can heal people, sort of tries to get revenge on him for stealing the limelight and for discrediting his work. And so it's sort of about friendship and like your own like self-confidence and your own self-worth. It's not exactly what a lot of shoujo is about nowadays, but it is a good illustration of how what shoujo manga is and can be about. It's good. It's very good. And then The Skin of Her Heart is a sci-fi story in where a young woman who works within I don't know where she works. She works in space, but she's really a factory worker who has caught the eye of the son of the owner. And so a lot of the other women are jealous of her. They think she's very standoffish, that she's got it made. Oh, she's the young master's favorite and she's going to get married and she thinks she's so much better than us, blah, blah, blah. But it's much more about her own questioning of what she wants. She wants to like really travel and see Earth and like get out of this small area and learn to sort of connect with people on a grander scale. It's very interesting and very good, very well done. Keiko Nishi was one of the mangaka that was featured in 4 Shoujo Stories. I enjoyed her stories in that, so I decided to pick this one up. She's very interesting. She's got a lot of sort of varied style and obviously a lot of different sorts of plots. She's not just a one-trick pony. I say if you're a fan of older shoujo, definitely pick this one up. I think you can still get it on thrift books. It's not hard to find. Well, it might be hard to find this book, but it's not to the level of like 4 Shoujo Stories. It's not incredibly expensive. This one can be found for less than $10 and is definitely worth the read if you're interested in any of those stories I mentioned. And finally, for the normal or usual manga, non-BL manga, is Volume 5 of Fruits Basket's Collector's Edition. Pretty much exactly the same as the other collector's edition. This is volume 9 and 10. And yeah, more of the same. It's a great release by Yen Press. Color pages in the front. And we're almost halfway through the story. The next volume will be the halfway point for this release. Yeah, I think because this comes out monthly, we are getting the entirety of the story a lot quicker than maybe it would have been otherwise. But Fruits Basket, great series. Highly recommended to anyone who enjoys a good shoujo story. It's definitely a series that holds up well over time and is definitely, I think, more than it seems. And if you're a fan of the anime, definitely pick up the manga because the story is a lot longer, a lot grander, and more characters, more things to do. Yeah, it doesn't. I think some of the characters' endings at the very end of the series aren't necessarily everyone's favorite, but the story itself is well worth the read. And yeah, I'm looking forward to rereading this one like I have been with the rest of all of these books. Yeah, it's just a great series to kind of come back to and see that it has held up so well over time. Next is some BL stuff. So I'm going to preface this by saying probably a year or so ago, I don't know if it's been that long, several months ago, Digital Manga Publishing and its sub-licensor, June, had a Kickstarter for a BL or Bara artist called Sakura, in order to publish several of her works in English. I'm not a huge Sakura fan. I know that she's very popular though, so it was a very successful campaign, due to, in part, that a lot of the extras and add-ons were previously out-of-print June titles getting a second or an additional reprinting, which is phenomenal for a lot of fans, because June has this sort of bad reputation for underprinting series, because they really don't, digital manga publishing doesn't really focus on their BL line anymore, unfortunately, even though it is sort of one of the things that does bring in a lot of their money. I don't know how much DMP really releases generally. I don't know how well their hentai releases do for them. But I do know that June used to be a much larger part of the yaoi and BL community before, and since there's been a lot of budget cuts and issues within the company, they really haven't focused on their BL fans a lot. So the fact that a lot of their highly regarded but extremely out of print titles were again made available meant that a lot of fans were able to finally get, certain volumes of series that they'd wanted for years and would never find for a decent price. So that was what I contributed to the Kickstarter for, was reprint titles. I didn't really have, like I said, I didn't have much interest in Sakura and her, the actual titles that were being released. But for the reprint titles, I was all over that. My sister also got a few, most notably both volumes of 7 Days, as well as Mr. Mini Mart, which is one of Junko's only releases, or her only release of in English of her BL work. I think another one's been licensed, but I can't remember. So those were the 3 that she got, but I also got 4 titles, 2 of which I am very excited about, 2 of which I hadn't really read before but seemed interesting, so I decided to get, because I did want to. I have been looking for them for a long time. Interestingly, with these reprints, you can obviously tell they were print on demand, so the actual volume is thinner but heavier than a standard June manga release. I'll show you an example of what I mean in just a minute. But first of all, the first release I got was Samajima-kun and Sasahara-kun by Koshino. This is one I've been looking for a long time. I had wanted to read this for a good while, mostly because it focuses on 2 friends who then start a relationship, but it really does focus on sort of the awkwardness that comes from that. It isn't just automatically like, oh, and we're in love and everything is perfect. It's much more like one person has feelings, and then the other person, he tells the other person, and he starts to consider whether or not he has feelings for his friend, because they're very close friends, but then he doesn't know whether that extends to love and whether they're actually sexually compatible and all sorts of things. So it is it's funny, but also I think a pretty good side of relationships, especially between friends, that you don't see too much, especially within manga. Yeah, it is really good. I don't know, I think certain copies of this will still be available on June and their new website. But yeah, it's a fun one. Definitely worth the read. It is explicit, but obviously most BL fans would be aware of that anyway. Yeah, it's good. Koshino has interesting, interesting sort of writing style. The artwork is not fantastic, but I think the strength of the story makes it still a worthwhile read. Next is the other one that I hadn't really read or seen much of before, but I decided to get because it was interesting to me, and That Was Good by C.J. Michalski. So I'm a sucker for especially BL where there's like a single father. When there's small children, it's always cute. I really enjoyed Serious About You, or Only Serious About You, sorry. And this one has another small child, this time a little boy, and it's about a young man who, I believe, a university student who kind of ends up being looking after this young kid whilst his father, who's a pilot, is working, because obviously his father is very often like fly out of the country. And so it's about that, and then love blooms, and then typical like BL storyline. There's also another side story about high schoolers in this, which is different, like not related to the main couple at all. But it's fun, it's cute, it has some problems, but it has a cute child, so I don't know. It's a bit. At the end of their story arc, there's some pretty dodgy stuff, because nobody communicates with anybody in bloody Japanese media. I swear to God. There was a miscommunication the kid gets kicked out of home because the guy's brother doesn't like him and he fires him, and so like misunderstandings because nobody communicates, and then there's issue like there's some problems with the end of their, like I said, with their end of their story arc, but I don't think it detracts from the story overall. I just think it was sort of a sloppy way to try and bring some drama into the story whilst also giving it a happy end, like a good resolution. I think the author was obviously pressed for time or page count and wanted to wrap things up quickly, while still being like having a dramatic impact. But it is sort of on the more dodgy end of, it's not nearly as bad as some BL works, but it's not completely fantastic. Like, it's not, you wouldn't ever want it to happen to you, let's just say that. But overall, it's a pretty cute story. I think it's done fairly well. The artwork, cute kids, I don't know, I'm weak to cute children. So it gets points for that. And it was fairly okay. I'd say it's definitely worth the read if you're into like single parent sort of story, romantic series. The other 2 volumes I got from this Kickstarter was 2 series 2 volumes by Ko Yonoda, which was the big reason I pledged in the first place, because Ko Yonoda is one of my favorite BL artists. She's incredibly good with story, but also artwork, and I always find her series to be very emotionally genuine. The first one is a volume that has been out of print for a very, very, very long time, and that is No Touching at All. This is actually kind of has a sequel that has also been released by June called Even So I'll Love You Tenderly? Even something along those lines. But No Touching at All is this kind of a workplace romance. Very, very much within Yonoda's style. It's very good. It's sort of, like I said, it's sort of the main story to Even So I'll Love You Tenderly. which is still fairly available to get. But Yuna does a great mangaka. I definitely recommend her work if you are a fan of BL. It is on the explicit side, and a lot of her stories are kind of more dramatic, usually involving yakuza, which are fairly standard for BL genre anyway, but no touching at all. Very, very good, and I'm glad that I was finally able to get a copy of this because it has been out of print and totally unavailable everywhere for years at this point, and it was just amazing to be able to get something like this at a decent price. And the back. Yeah, I am very happy about this one. And the other Koyonoda work I got, which was again something that's been out of print for a very long time, and this one actually had an updated translation, and that is Twittering Birds Never Fly Volume 1. This one is about the Yakuza, and it's honestly, I think, one of her more intriguing series. Definitely worth the read. If you, read up on it and make a decision yourself. But I really enjoy this one, regardless of sort of the problems it has. Just flying over everywhere. And the back. This one, like I said, it has an updated translation, so it is actually a better book than the original one that was released. And this series is great. It's about two men. One is quite high up in the Yakuza, but he's sort of he's known within the family as being like super slut. He'll sleep with any man, and he's like a super pervert. So he's just completely masochistic. He doesn't care what you do to him. He'll just take it and enjoy it. And so nobody really respects him aside from the men like directly under him. And they just treat him like trash, basically. But he's very smart. So he doesn't need to be, like, super manly or buff or anything. Because he can make money and, like, be conniving and convincing and just very smart and do very well without need the respect from everyone else. And then there's the other main character is someone who has just joined the organization, the family, and he just got out of jail. He was in there for 4 years after basically beating his father half to death. And in his previous life, before prison, he was a policeman, and now he's decided to work for the Yakuza. He doesn't think he can get a proper job with a criminal record, and he's really become fallen in love with this other main character. He really respects him. He thinks he's beautiful. He thinks he's just the smartest, most amazing person he's ever met. But he's he's impotent, so he can't, the main, slutty character can't sleep with him because, obviously. And so they grow this relationship, actually based on, friendship and trust rather than just, this sexual desire. It's done really well. It's a really good series. But to what I was saying about these newer volumes being much thinner, you can see it's a thin volume anyway, but in comparison to volume 2 of the same series that was released just a few months ago, you can see the difference. Volume 1 was a skinnier volume anyway, but just it's almost half the size, or it's only about 2/3 the size, whereas the other one would have been at least that thick. Twittering Birds Never Fly Volume 1, again, one that was going for literally hundreds of dollars. I'm really glad that June had the opportunity to re-release it, and I'm just hoping to stay on top of the future releases because I really enjoy this series and I'm really looking forward to more. Finally, for this video. Wow, this got really long, even though there's not that many volumes in this pickup. Is a Korean Manhwa BL story. One I hadn't really heard much about, but I saw the cover. I sort of fell in love with it. I looked up the story and decided that I'm gonna be really weak and buy this. So this is a release by Net Comics, who does generally release manhwa. I don't know how much manga they've released, but I know they release a lot of manhwa. And that is Intense by Kyung-ha Yi. And this one again is about Yakuza. Yakuza are very, well, it's not, this one isn't technically Yakuza, it's the Korean mafia, but basically the same idea. And it's about this young man who was taken in by the family after his father owed them debts and then commits suicide. So they've trained him to be sort of an assassin. But after who he's working for was sent to prison, he's been sent to the red light district to just kind of bodyguard the prostitutes and those sorts of things, and just kind of lay low. And then he meets a young man who's just typical handyman in the area, who came of his own volition just to help people, and neither of them really talk much. It's really good. I don't know how to explain it. It's really intense is the correct word for this title. The volume 1 is called Night on the Red Road, obviously a reference to the red light district. And the artwork in this series is great. It's so beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. I think, especially considering the general standard for BL works, it's really nice to see such a well done art style with such an interesting story. I really flip-flop on whether or not I like a lot of manhwa art style, which is why I don't buy too much of it. But Intense is great. I know that maybe not a lot of people would try a Korean manhwa, especially just for BL as well, but this one is definitely well worth it. I saw a picture of it on Twitter, of the cover, which is what got me interested in the first place, but I'm so glad I ran across it because I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of it. I believe it's only 4 volumes, and I think they're all out. They've all been released. So I want to get the next ones, but of course I'm not spending money at the moment, so I'll just have to pick them up whenever I get them. But yes, Intense by Kyung-ha Yi. Fantastic. Great first volume. Really looking forward to reading more of it. It is sort of more expensive because it is it is a Korean release, and it is a larger print release. And it's Net Comics, so they tend to be a little more expensive anyway. But yeah, so that is all of the manga I got this month. Love Story is the other way around, but I'm going to fix it. A fair few amount of titles, but some of them were stuff like Kickstarter rewards that I've been waiting for a long time. As for actual new releases, there's only a few of those, and like I said, I don't think I'll be getting a huge amount of manga or anime either for the next couple months. I'll still be getting some, but it's not going to be huge stacks of manga like it has been in previous videos. But thank you all for watching. Apologies for going so long with this, especially considering it's such a short or so few amount of titles. And for babbling so long at the beginning. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and bye till then.